So, good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Yeah, wow, Friday. Days go by so quick. On the brink of a holiday weekend, and I will say this, last night, as I was just thinking about so much stuff, I'm up late because I did take a nap yesterday for a long ass time. And I slept actually from 12 to about 5 with a little bit of break in the sleep. And then I was going on my newsfeed and in these crime watch groups as I'm feeling the heart palpitations and how aggressive things are. There's like police like all over my town going to different places because there's gunmen, shootings, there's stabbings, and I'm itching today, and I have 2 little bumps on one side of my butt cheek, on one side, the other side, on the other side. They're itchy, so it's not a bug bite, it's systemic. My legs are a little bit itchy, but nothing crazy. It's just, and then this morning, pushing out all the demons this morning, holy shit. Yeah, it really was a concerted effort to release the demons. And I do feel like the scar right here, yeah, that's why I posted that article about scar tissue pain, because there's something to that too. And I'm telling you guys out there, having so much diversity on my Facebook is not only an amazing thing, it opens up your eyes once you're able to look at everyone in a different way. And you're able to take in movies, books, religions, politics, science, fantasy, fiction, reality, ghosts and goblins, right? The veil between the dead world and the alive world is very thin relative to the frequencies, and the veil between reality and fantasy is now, the boundaries are becoming very blurry. The boundaries are becoming very blurry. And so, and then also thinking back to what I've come up with as a conclusion of how to save humanity, right? Because we're all trying to save humanity, every single one of us. Every single one of us. What is humanity? Well, mankind, races of men, whatever, right? Every single one of us, I'm serious, every single one of us is trying to save humanity. But we have been programmed to actually destroy each other when we're trying to save each other. And so when I came up with the conclusion that you have to save yourself, then I was thinking about the Bible story when we celebrated Passover, which is, and I was raised Jewish, so we went to Friday night services all the time. We went to temple, we went to high holidays, sat in the high holidays, pews for hours and hours, fasted, I guess, or as much as we can fast. As a child, you can't fast too much. And just went to all the different dinners and the celebrations. And so Passover and the Seder plate and each of the symbols on the Seder plate. There's haroset, there's an egg, a lamb shank, and there's others. I don't have it all memorized. It's been a while. But the haroset is like the mortar when the slaves of Egypt, which were the Israelites, built the bricks for the pyramids and other structures. And so that Bible story of Passover stuck in my mind because the matzah was the unleavened bread when they escaped Egypt, and then they put the unleavened bread on their back, and the sun baked it, and that's what they ate, and manna from heaven and all that. But before that, the parting of the sea, and Moses parted the sea, and then all the Israelites left Egypt. But before that, there was the 10 plagues, because the 10 plagues was the punishment if Pharaoh did not release the Israelites from servitude, that God would punish the Egyptians. And so before that, Moses threatened the Pharaoh that if he did not release the Israelites and set them free, that there'd be 10 plagues cast upon the land. And there was thousands and thousands and thousands, probably even millions of people back then, whenever that whole Exodus story came about. Okay? And so you look at today, it's not that different. Oh my God. I gotta blow my nose. Hold on. And so then I looked at the 10 plagues, and I thought about, and then I was thinking about the killing of the firstborn. And we know that, well, not we know, I circulated in the conspiracy world, and a lot of them were in the born-again Christian world. And the conspiracy world definitely had an issue with the Jewish religion. And of course, there's a lot of discrimination against the Jewish religion and anti-Semitism. And that is a no-no, because that is an intolerance, a discrimination, and it is a scapegoating. No different than whenever you blame Jilly Juice or Fauci or anyone out there who in their compartmentalized world wants to save the world, but there are other intentions going on, that when you put all the compartmentalized people together who want to save the world, the outcome is the intention based upon how everything is constructed and people's belief systems that are already laid out for many years. And so they were saying, oh yeah, the killing of the firstborn, and of course the whole Cain and Abel, and somebody trying to, is it Abraham that was going to sacrifice his son to show his loyalty to God and all that. And so then I'm thinking, like, with the sacrifice of the firstborn, as far as the firstborn dying in the 10 plagues, then why is it the firstborn? And it's not satanic if you don't take that literally, okay? This is what people do, is they take the Bible stories literally. They take a lot of stories out there. They're an allegory literally. Maybe it's actually an allegory or a moral to say that when there is great resets that happen, every fourth turning, every 80-year cycle, and there is an actual theory that theory was developed by somebody. And it's also Joe Rogan, he mentions that too. Okay. But what if the whole firstborn is to say that it's anyone that you have put before you? That if you don't save yourself, then it will be the firstborn that will pass away. And it could be your child, it could be your husband, you're trying to save your husband. And if you're stronger than your husband and you're trying to save your husband, but to no avail, when the angel of death passes over, it's the weakest person that's going to be taken out. Regardless if you even try to save yourself. But people, see, even in this environment, and the J World only came out since 2016. And so we do have people trying to save each other. They're trying to do surgeries, trying to recommend surgeries, give them recommend tinctures, even J juice and all that stuff, recommending diets and detoxes. They're trying to save each other. And obviously only the strong are going to survive. Even though, yeah, your intention is to save somebody else. But over time, when that happens, as you weaken trying to save everyone around you, eventually you not only will be sacrificed with the environment, but also everyone that you're trying to save, because they're extremely weak, obviously, or some are stronger, and it's still going to be the strongest are going to survive. But allegorically, in that 10 plagues, it was said in so many words and not so many words that if you don't set the Israelites or set your family free, it doesn't mean you destroy them, but you get them out of your servitude. See, there's so much to this. See, slavery doesn't always mean that you're laying brick or putting together mortar so you can put pyramids together. Slavery could also mean not allowing your friends and family to evolve. And so sometimes when God wants to set humans free, it means that the weakest person who could be really strong and enslaving someone would be taken out by the environment. That's the type of freedom that could be experienced. It could mean that the weakest person who is not really evil, who's just trying to survive, or a child, is set free by the environment because they're not strong enough for the environment. And that's the sacrifice of the firstborn. Because usually when they sacrifice of the firstborn, if you're in a family situation and you have toddlers, obviously the toddler is not going to be strong enough, doesn't have a strong immune system for the environment. So the mother, if she's strong enough, will be the one to survive versus that toddler. No matter how much that mother tries to save that child, the child does not have what it takes to deal with the environment. And they haven't learned how to adapt. See, the only reason why the system has leverage over humans, all the race of men, is because you were never taught to adapt. So you get used to one way, you get used to a politic, a religion, or a scientific dogma. And you loop back and forth between a victim and a predator, back and forth, back and forth. And so you play those games in a nice, even environment. You have your traditions, your holidays, all of your predictable outcomes, your formula for life. And then when the environment changes, that's how then the 10 plagues, the scale down, the setting people free from slavery of their friends or family, their jobs, their moms or dads, and all freedom is all relative to how you want to, how it comes out. It could be death, or it could be somebody dying that was enslaving you. And again, everything's relative. And so they're like, holy shit. So there's that story, and I'll read that somewhere along. And so I'll read that in a more of an organized fashion. But then I was thinking about like my hair turning white one day. And then John mentioning elves. And John has pointy ears, okay? Audrey has this cute, like gnome-like face, like Audrey, like the Scottish, the Irish, like you think Lord of the Rings, you think, and that might be even why certain countries don't like each other, because of certain types of characteristics from Middle Earth. I don't know. I mean, this is where having the diversity on your Facebook, having so many different people that are going to that give you another way to look at stuff. You have a new appreciation for the diversity. And you know that good men can turn evil because of all the 7 deadly sins. It doesn't have to be that way. But we all know that what happened to the Hobbit, Gollum, Smeagol. Gollum was a Smeagol. He was a good little hobbit until he was touched by evil, by greed, by power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so you think about the Scottish and the Irish, and they could be like some type of like hobbit type of stuff. I mean, there was an actual Homo floresiensis, the hobbit. And I'm thinking they actually do. There's a lot of genetic editing going on that we all have been relatively homogenized, but we are seeing even now there are certain people that look almost hobbit-like as the size, and they look like a regular human. They don't have like that dwarf type of look, but there's a girl on my Facebook. I follow her on the reels, but I don't really follow her, but she's more into like dancing, kind of like sexy dancing. I don't say porn, but she's like this little slight girl that looks like a mini human, and definitely an anomaly because we all been homogenized. And so when John mentioned that elves have white hair, then that I just ran away with that. I don't say get carried away, no, because everything is connected. Everything is connected. And I know that he has the ears. He's extremely smart. I mean, Audrey is smart in her way in so many ways. John's smart in his way in so many ways. Pip is smart in her way in so many ways. We all are smart in our different ways. We've been programmed relative to our culture, our politics, our everything. And now we're all being set free on some level. Tanya, smart in her way in some way. We're all being set free on some level and able to act out whatever was either programmed into us or what we're able to release and take on. And so we're in a really interesting time. And so then I'm thinking like, okay, Elven. And I was always fascinated with the elves. Okay, the elf race in the Lord of the Rings. I watched that back when I was in San Francisco. Some friends of mine were really interested in that, and I watched all of those series. I watched in the movies and probably on video. And it was a little scary. Absolutely. And you could almost think that that is not only probably what happened many thousands and thousands of years ago, but also some level of what's going on today. I'm telling you, it's pretty aggressive. That's why I keep blowing my nose, to keep releasing the pressure. Okay? So sorry, excuse me. And so, yeah, so I'm going to go now from when my last video was up to this point, because you got to see my train of thought from my last video. I want you to know how I come up with this stuff. Believe me, I don't just make up shit just to make up shit. Either Audrey clued me in, Tanya figures some stuff out, John, anyone that shares something about themselves, or even gives me just one word that I didn't even think of. Okay? And then I explore that one word, and that word opens up worlds. Just like Audrey mentioned, Hydra. And that's why I named the book Another Arm of the Hydra. Because she opened up that huge world of the microbes, of Hydra, hydration, water, life, energy. You see where that goes? Tanya was like, shit, I've been victimized by the freaking butcher medical system. Butchering women. Taking out their reproductive system. Now they're going through torture of fibroids and tumors and hormonal imbalances because of all the butchery in the medical and even holistic system. Okay? And so she opened up that world and potentially helped so many women who were on that fence of whether or not they should get a surgery or ride it out and release the demons and become whole again. So she helped so many fucking people. John, man, he has amazing stuff. And then the whole elf thing. And then now we have Lord of the Rings. I already had that background, that platform, Lord of the Rings. I've watched it many times. But now when I watch it again, which I'm going to watch it through a totally different pair of eyes. And I've studied the hominids. A few years ago, I had all the different progression of the evolution of mankind based upon the sciences that we know today. Homo sapien, Homo erectus, Homo whatever, what is it? I don't remember all of them. If I had them, I would go back to them and look at them. But Homo floresiensis, the Hobbit. Okay, so even though we look at it as something like ancient and way back, or Neanderthals, there's definitely characteristics of all of those races races of mankind, species, shit. And we know that science does play with genetics. They can take DNA from anything and purify it and hybridize or graft them or dock them to other proteins to watch evolution. And then also, we have humans going to be made in a lab. And they're going to be made in a lab. They're not going to be made in so much chaos. I mean, there's something to be said for a little bit of suffering. I don't know. Anyway, any human made in a lab that doesn't have too much suffering, doesn't get born into like a world of, I don't know. Well, yeah, when you're in your lab and you don't have any kind of trauma, because we know that if mothers are smoking or smoking pot or get beaten up by their boyfriends or they're in some kind of war-torn situation, that is influencing that fetus during that mother's time of carrying that baby. So when you have a baby that's born in a lab, that lab is not only sterile, but it's kept completely stable. There is no trauma during that time. Yes, when the baby finally gets born and it has to take its first breath, it's going to cry because it also has to release all the stuff and through all the tubes and everything. That baby now is able to come from I don't know what kind of platform that is. I mean, that's like coming from nothing, and then the system can program that child for something. And there isn't all that residual garbage baggage in the background that the system has to overcome. That's probably why they want to guide reproduction carefully, because they know that we have so many people under so much trauma, under so much deficiencies, and they're in societies that are so aggressive and violent that these kids are getting influenced negatively in utero. Okay? And so if they can develop the perfect conditions in a lab, so this kid comes out not only whole, but not traumatized from war and violence and drugs and other things, that's a new frontier. That's almost unheard of. And people think that, oh, that's satanic, that's this. Imagine what it's like to compare someone that came from someone who went through those kind of traumas and someone who didn't go through a trauma. They were just in a nice, quiet lab that's able to just kind of, they're just existing and developing, and there's no kind of trauma to it in utero. See, now it makes you look at science in a totally different way. That's what I want my J world. And people who are able to kind of take that on, look at it from that point of view instead of casting judgment and saying, oh God, lab-created babies, lab-created uteruses, that's like the dawn of satanic shit. Not necessarily. It's these kids that have undergone so much trauma in utero and in their environment and their families and their friends and their lifestyle is what's, I don't say satanic because that's really aggressive, but you think they have half a chance if they can't get over those traumas? No, so you have a child that's born in no trauma, no major trauma. They have a better chance than someone's born in trauma. But then the survivability, then you have to program survivability in that kid born in a lab. How you do that, I don't fucking know. So it's I'm sure science is going to experience both sides of it and see what happens. And when society becomes less violent, okay? And this is where it's going to be interesting, because when you do program people to come from no suffering, really, they have to be in a relatively stable environment. Because once they go out into the world and they experience things, will they be able to survive it? Because they didn't even have the platform in utero to handle trauma or handle suffering or handle stress. So it's a double-edged sword, but you see how far you can take it. You have someone that's so homogenized and so stress-free that when the environment changes and they expose something stressful, will they survive it? And you have someone that's been so stressed out, so traumatized that they don't become something evil and start traumatizing everyone around them. And so you see how extreme things can get, okay? And so just understand that from that point of view. And so anyways, yesterday, I'm just going to go down my timeline. The red sunrise can mean that a high pressure system, good weather, is already passed, thus indicating that the storm low pressure may be moving to the east. All right, so we have the jet stream going up and down, and we are definitely getting all those wildfire smoke particles, plus then particle acceleration, which is why you're seeing people either act crazy and commit crimes, or they're getting turbo cancers or turbo growth, and every intention is now on turbo. So if you're intending to be in peace and you don't want to feel your pain of release and pain of retention, and then you take certain things to stop it, well, that could actually accelerate the death process relative to your state of existence. You could be really deficient, and there you go. And so then it brings me to this about the aortic rupture. And when 22-year-olds don't survive the environment and they have no real history of disease, well, maybe they do, but the parents didn't think that would come up in this environment. Well, aortic aneurysms is based upon so much pressure of the body going through a turbo growth. And so then the aortic walls and all that are not conditioned to handle that kind of pressure. And so they break. And this is where people die. So the aorta is the largest artery of the body and carries blood from the heart to the circulatory system. It has several sections: the aortic root, the transition point where blood first exists. The heart functions as the water main of the body. It exits the heart and the functions as the water main of the body. And so when the blood vessels are under so much pressure because you have a weak lymphatic system and are actually stopping the body from releasing, and do not understand the method via my book, all the pressure of white and red blood cells will weaken the aorta. This is also why die suddenly has happened. Closed immune system cause pressure and weakness. That's what's in my book. My book says that I am advocating an open immune system. What is an open immune system? Where you're able to manipulate things internally yourself with your fingers and whatever else to open up your system to release those demons that will cause then the pressure of so many white and red blood cells to multiply. White blood cells, the macrovirus. Oh shit, there's a name for it, but it's okay. Micro and macro. There's, oh my god, all these scientific names. But anyways, the white, well, I'll just say white blood cells because they're antibodies, but there's also another name for them. Myco and macro. Well, anyways, I'll think of it later. But then they multiply and multiply and multiply, and that's why people get these tumors. They get all these growths because the body is not allowed to release. That's why they also die from heart attacks and strokes, because all of that blockage will then stop the oxygen to the brain. Okay. And so I have to get an open immune system. When you blow your nose and you cough and you sneeze, you're opening up all of your eustachian tubes, you're opening up your throat, you're opening up everything that could cause people to drown in their sleep in the middle of the night when there is that turbo growth that happens. That's why when I wake up sometimes in the middle of the night, I'm blowing my nose. Like I could feel everything starting to close up. Not really close up. There's so much growth. Yeah, I guess you can call it close up. I could feel like as if you're like when you're getting sick and you're blowing your nose, but you're not really, because it's all like blocked up and you can't even breathe, you can't even move, you feel like you're under like water. Literally, that's what it feels like when you have that much growth that's not allowed to release because you never trained it to, because your parents kept giving you NyQuil, your parents kept giving you Dayquil, your friends and family were recommending Mucinex and all those different drugs that stop the body from releasing and drying up the little enemies inside of you, and so they metastasize and they eventually turn into cancer. Not only infection, but they turn into cancer. And so you have to open up your immune system. That's why I'm advocating cough, sneeze, blow your nose, and manipulate the parts of your body that can release those demons. Because I'll tell you, in aggressive environments like this, those demons want to stay in the body, and you have to be strong enough to cough, sneeze, blow your nose, and pull that shit out, literally. Okay? And so yeah. Okay. I'll Google something. So this is going to bug me. Crap. All right. Oh, it's okay. All right. Never mind. I'm not going to let it bug me. Oh, that's what it is. I'm looking up another name for antibodies. That's why. Yeah, the antigen antibody programming, there's another name for it. Antigen antibodies, and then lymphocytes. Macrophages. I knew I'd find it. Microphages and macrophages. Phage is a virus. A virus is like a hydra. And then the macrophages are like macrophage. How would you say macrophage? Well, let's just, because when I want to find something, I'll find something out. A type of white blood cell that surrounds and kills microorganisms. Okay, so there's microphages and macrophages, and those things do attack. And so, okay, so there you go. All right, so give me 1 second. Oh, Audrey, you commenting on something? Okay, I'm not looking now. All right, so that's the open and close. So closed immune systems cause pressure and weakness. Okay, when you do not reinforce your body with fat and nutrition, aortic ruptures happen and died suddenlies happen. All humans and babies need cream, milk, cream, and proteins. All kids and adults need milk, cream. And so if you have allergies to milk and cream and other things, then you're going to have to bring that in really slowly so you can keep releasing those demons, and bring it slowly to when you eat milk, it's not going to be so much life producing from that. And so the body's able to use that life, and it goes to necessary places. And then you're also able to release any excessive life. And so that's why you got to get over your food allergies and your politics around food, because you're going to need every bit of nutrition that's out there. All right. So I feel bad for those allowed to be allergic to milk. And you know, people are like, oh, what about goat milk? No, you need the fat. You need the fat. Look at the cow. You need the fat, especially in this environment. So get away from the milk probiotics because the fats and sugars converts into proteins, okay? Many children are deficient and candidates for this diet suddenly because of their parents' politics around foods. And so the J world is about an open immune system, and the system you all belong to actively closes your immune system and keeps you cured until the pressure is too great and then a supernova or a diet suddenly. Having so many kids now will weaken the parents from economical to biological stress, and the child also came into an aggressive world, and the parent is not really prepared to deal with just how aggressive everything is. And guess what? They will use the medical, holistic system as the child tries to evolve. The mother and the father will keep crushing a kid's evolution, not intentionally, but out of love because they were never conditioned to suffer for survival. And that's what's going on. That's what's going on is these kids they're growing up deficient, and they may be able to survive this atmosphere, right? They're able to get through the diseases, get through the colds and the flus and the COVID and all that. And so then now they have all these little things inside of them that are circulating and eating away at their structure, their infrastructure as they grow up. And so they're breaking bones. That's an indicator that they are not getting the nutrients because something else is diverting that away, or they're not eating enough of the nutrients, or they're eating enough, but something else is diverting away because they're not releasing the demons. And so when they're like 22 years old and they're in college on that very shaky background because of the parents and their issues around food and symptoms and their stuff in the medical holistic system, then they die suddenly at 22, 23, or they're an athlete and they can't survive that lifestyle, or they just come home because it changed from one environment in college to another environment that's maybe more aggressive at home. And they went from one area that's slower, but not really as far as frequencies. They go to another area that's really high frequency. They don't survive that transition. And that's just a bus ride away. Why did that kid die at home? Because probably the frequencies were probably really aggressive and they couldn't handle the frequency shift in that area. And so, yeah, you can go from one frequency shift to another because of the system. And there may be even just steady frequencies that are higher frequencies over there, like in one state, and lower frequencies over there. And someone in a lower frequency that's already compromised goes into a higher frequency area, dies suddenly. That's what I'm saying. You have to know how to adapt to every kind of frequency shift. And that's what the system is doing. It is conditioning people who are strong enough to handle aggressive, continuous frequency shifts, but not so continuous that it completely destroys everyone. Because if it was so continuous on such an aggressive level, everyone in that little town or big town would all be dead. And so right now it is a chipping away, and they're giving you enough time to redirect and feed that energy. But not many people understand this. They're on diets, they're immunocompromised, and they have issues. And so these frequency shifts are just chipping away at their soul and taking them out systematically, progressively, and then die suddenly. You got to know how this shit works. If you don't, you got to save yourself, moms. You're not going to save your kids. You have to save yourself. Okay, China's population crisis. Remember, all right, when I went to China in 2004, the Chinese students were just as hungry for westernization as they read so many books from tech, manufacturing, and defense systems, and they were even picking my brain when I was there. They're also interested in entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship. 19 years later, now look at China via climate economic change. Yeah, they're booming. They did very well in the last 19, 20 years, but now you're seeing there's decline. They went through that major pandemic, that major energy shift. And you're going to see that also the one-child policy is going to work against them because the families revered the boys, not the girls. The girls were sent off somewhere else to be slaves, and the boys were in charge, but the boys don't have that ability to evolve. And so there's now not enough women, and the men are dying, and they're kidnapping women too, but also the women are not really adaptable. Maybe some will in America if they understand the J world, but you're seeing now China is going to go through a major, not only economic decline, but a population decline. So Africa is now headed in that direction. Just watch Africa. In the next 19 years, it's going to be just like China. When I was there in 2004, when things were up and coming, and they had bookstores full of all Western books in business and all that stuff, Africa's doing the same thing. They're learning so much Western type of ideas, and of course the tech industry, the medical industry, the holistic industry, as you're seeing, and they're teaching them how to financially ruin each other on some level. They're teaching them to be kind, but you also know that there are going to be sharks out there. They're going to want. You already see it with the scammers. So Africa's going to go through the same type of stuff that China went through, what America went through too over so many years. Oh, it's going to be interesting, right? So Africa is now headed in that direction. Just watch Africa. I give Africa another 20 years. They will end up like China, like America. Population boom, and then a bust. That's the Georgia Guidestones, okay? And remember, we're heading into 2050. There's UN Agenda 2050. And then we also have the turn of the century, which would be 2100. But during this process, we're going to see a major decline between now and 2100. All right, 2050 is going to be like the halfway mark. And it's not going to be difficult to watch the next 50 years after that as they get the infrastructure all built. Oh, that's what I'm saying. You don't need to be an Edgar Casey to be prophesizing this shit. Just look at the patterns of humans if you're able to pay attention and get out of your homogenized politics, religion, and science world. You can see the patterns. I'm not special. Just so you know, I'm not special. I just went through the suffering of the flack from everyone coming at me for challenging their lifestyle and belief system. But also, I released those demons. I suffered through my own mycoplasma from all of the sins of the father and the mother and even my own sins throughout my life. Okay? And I suffered through that. And I am so interested in everything. I read fucking everything. I don't leave anything unturned. When someone gives me an idea, I go and read about it. I learn about it. And I tuck that away somewhere because it'll be useful later. Being well-read now is not that difficult because you have access to online books, audio books. You have access to even buying books. Just get on Amazon. We have people in places that are really homogenized, that don't have a lot of education, and maybe there's some violence. And if you can find a way to be a little bit stable, and yeah, I've had friend request people that are live in different places that may not get a lot of education, and they're looking to break free from the jail that they're in. Okay? You know how you want to educate yourself, not only release those demons and go through that suffering of releasing those demons and feeding yourself, but also feed your mind everything. Learn the basics. If it means that you go to school, if you can, get financial aid, get a loan, who knows, whatever, but do something to better yourself. If you're in a small little town that you might have some little semblance of stability, and feed your brain. Don't be so tunneled and homogenized and believe everything you see on the internet about somebody else. Because, again, all that negative conflict is not so much as a bad thing, but more to make you research why you're interested in this. Looking at the upsides and the downsides and weighing all of that out based upon what you can handle and what you are able to deal with. And then you make a good decision for yourself, a good choice for yourself, okay? So even my trolls have given people the opportunity to research even more. Because if somebody just said, hey, this is great, do what I'm doing, I'm the end-all fucking be-all, and no one is countering me or conflicting with me, and you do it and you don't realize some of the aggressive energy that goes along with it. And I've said it, but even then, can you go back through all my videos and watch every single video? It's a lot to go through. And I don't always say that it's going to be difficult. You might experience heart attacks and strokes if it's in your genetic line and you have to deal with pushing out that shit and pushing things through your body. Your body has to then go and take the resources to push it through so it can release. And some people have to deal with all those different energies that they're not prepared to. But I don't say that all the time. So if you're coming in where I'm saying everything is great and you're going to think that, but then, and you don't read all the countering arguments or like, holy shit, then you don't look at the other videos that say, okay, yeah, you're gonna have to experience some shit and all, so this is why you must research everything to make a choice for yourself. But you can't go wrong with reading stuff. You can't go wrong in expanding your brain. You can't go wrong just sitting at home and not drinking at a bar and sit and read stuff and pull out the shit and eat your food and deal with whatever predisposed issues. And if you need to see a doctor, but find a way to transition from death to life, from ignorance to some kind of knowledge and intellectual capacity to keep building from. That's the ticket out of the jail of ignorance, out of the jail of suffering, major suffering, out of the jail of so many things. And that would also mean that people around you would have to support you on some level. Because people around you are undermining you and telling you you're no good, don't listen to her, she's stupid, don't read, come out here and be distracted, then that's going to be the hardest thing for you to extricate yourself. It's your friends and your family and those that don't want to change are the hardest jailers of all because you love them. But that's the first step to setting yourself free, is knowing the jail that you're in. And it's not my fault. It's not the government's fault. Now you're getting access to information. Now you are going to choose. Okay? And so so that's the Georgia Guidestones. So people who are serious in the J world, assuming you survive climate change, eventually there will be a calm down in the weather. But it's not going to be for a while. 20 years plus, 2023 equals 2043, a new turning 2050, and there's still 2100. All right, so we're heading into now the new world of 2100, but it's going to be a major population boom and then a scale down, and that's the Georgia Guidestones. Okay, now this is where it's going to be interesting. All right, I'm getting myself psychologically prepared for this one. If men want to survive, they must evolve their own body, because having a child nowadays will produce weaker offspring. This is why it will become a woman's world. It is not political. It is about survival. Women have a higher internal pain threshold than men. Men can, feel pain and stuff and like muscle pain. But when it comes to being sick and release the demons, they don't have that. Believe me. I mean, I'm glad that my husband is pooping and all that. When I even pooped a little bit the day before, like it seemed like it was a diarrhea. Like I could feel it come on really quickly. That's my body releasing those demons. It happens to my husband sometimes, but he's not going to be like me, because he'd have to retire to really face all of his demons, because that would get in the way of his job if you actually face his demons. And so that's why I hope that well, I don't know. See, yeah. So if men want to survive, they must evolve their own body, because having a child nowadays will produce weaker offspring, and even having lots of sex will produce a weaker man. Okay? This is why it will become a woman's world. It is not political, it is survival. Women have a higher internal pain threshold than men, because we're supposed to have babies, supposedly, right? Just watch how men act when they are sick. They cannot handle sickness, which is why mostly women understand the J world. Very few men understand this. So you see who really understands. It's mostly women that understand this. Very few men understand this. And if they do, they're not going to say too much, because they know what's involved and they're not going to out themselves. And so even though I may say this, it may not be true, because the men are not going to be like, yeah, I stick my finger in my ass and pull out the shit. Because, that's a stigma. Anything having to do with your asshole in the man's world is a stigma. They're the ones who are supposed to stick things in. They're not supposed to have anything go into them, right? But that's why I say the gay men might have a better chance than the straight men. And so American biotech understands this at a micro level, right? Because they know how strong women are. Men have a chance to survive, but they cannot rely on sexual reproduction until they and their counterparts become stronger. But even then, when you rely on sexual reproduction to carry on the human genetic line, then you intend to pass away someday. And that's what parenting right now and families are about, is that the parents, the grandparents, the matriarchs and patriarchs are supposed to pass. And that's been a tradition for a while, and now I'm challenging that tradition. Which is why we're in a great reset, because we have so many families out there, like so many. So how many men will admit they're using my method outlined in my book? And it is necessary. But how many manly, straight Republican and even Democrat men will even contemplate that? Not many, if at all. If anything, it will be the gay men who have a better chance at survival than the straight men, for obvious reasons. If you have been paying attention to my videos or read my book, and I've said it in so many words, yeah. Is my method necessary for survival? Yes. Even though I really had to work, even I had to really work at not only breathing and coughing and blowing my nose so hard, but also internal manipulation to release the demons during extremely aggressive energy conversions. And I was in bed laid out. I did not even use the JJ or even milk at the time. Will cream do it for people? If you have lack of communication and have blockages between the upper and lower half of your body, drinking milk or cream can cause, or I would say cause it, but I'll read that in a second. Asthma attacks. So you must learn how to transition slowly and use my internal manipulation method at the lower regions during that process. Okay, how many manly straight Republican males will even contemplate that? Or even put that out there on Facebook or anywhere else, or even tell their kids, right? This is why it will be mostly a woman's world. Women have a higher threshold for pain, will do what it takes to survive. Some men might have what it takes, but we shall see. It's still very early on in the game. And so if you cannot evolve Your politics, religion, and science dogmas in a very aggressive atmosphere will take down your offspring systematically. This is why manual internal manipulation is necessary during your transition to longevity. You cannot rely on the JJ or even milk to release those demons. Drinking milk or eating dairy products doesn't cause asthma. However, if you have a dairy allergy, it may trigger symptoms that are similar to asthma. Also, if you have asthma and a dairy allergy, dairy may even worsen your asthma symptoms. About 45% of children with asthma also have dairy and other food allergies. That's because they have not learned how to release the demons. That panic, the body is not used to bringing on the nutrition, and so that's why they're not equipped to grow. They have to transition. They have to be around people to help them through their transition. So overcoming all food allergies requires time and patience. You need food, all food, in this aggressive environment. And again, if you are not eating all food, we'll see. And so then I went back to the whole thing about milk. Northern Europeans have the most tolerance for milk and are extremely strong and adaptable. China, despite a growing interest in milk, is again near the very bottom, just above North Korea and Indonesia, where people basically don't drink milk. One last interesting tidbit is how milk consumption varies by age in a way of soda and fruit juice consumption does not. See, yeah. But people get older in this society as they're deteriorating. The growth is what, the evolution, the growth is what concerns them because they haven't been taught to release. And so that's why adults become narrower and narrower as they are starving, because they can't handle the evolution, the change, they can't handle the release, they can't handle the growth. That's why they turn into shells of themselves and starving, and their body goes to shit. Some parts of Africa can drink milk, other parts cannot. If you are African and you cannot drink milk, you're going to have to find a way to transition slowly if you want to survive. India is the #1 in milk production, but they also have very aggressive spices to counteract and cause aggressive fertility, which is why you're seeing them so skinny at some point. Yeah, they might have mango lassies, which is like a yogurt, like a fermented, but they're not getting the fat. They're fermenting milk. They worship cows. They don't eat the meat. A lot of vegetarian. They have the milk, but they ferment the milk and turn it into mango lassies. That's yogurt. Yogurt sauces, that's all probiotic. I drink straight cream with sugar and in my coffee. And I have milk and cereal. So does my husband. That's why my husband taught me that. Because he always had milk around 10 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night. Milk with his cereal. I'm like, then no wonder you're fucking strong. That's his habit. It's a fucking good habit. My husband is from a Germanic, Scotch, Irish, whatever background. He is strong as I had. Thank God I married him. Thank God I married him and he wasn't somebody from California who was always going to the doctor all the time. No, he has some major aggressively strong roots in his background. And so I talk about the shoebill stork. And this is where, okay, Elven. This is where John gave me that idea. Elven, an elf is a mythical creature. Really? Is it really mythical? Sometimes referred to as a demigod, even of Germanic mythology, paganism, which still survives in Northern European folklore. Okay, so the gods, the Greek gods, all the Lord of the Rings and all that stuff, Northern Europe, the Elven, the ogres, Hobbits, all the fantasy stuff from like England and Europe and Scotch and Irish. And then even when I was watching Eurovision, and which is that movie with Will Ferrell and the other chick, I forget her name, and she was leaving food and wine for the little gnomes in the back of the hill. I'm like, yeah. There's so much to this world that we don't even know, Northern Europeans, the importance of lactose tolerance, ambrosia, right? The food of the gods, immortality. I think we are the elves. Remember, everything is relative. There were giants. They don't exist anymore, really. We have basketball players who are gigantic, but there were giants at one point. So now, and I have, okay. So there's that, and then there's pictures, okay. So there's pictures of me where you see my hair is turning white. Doesn't mean that I'm going to die from old age. It just means that the original hair color, that's when John was saying that elves have gray hair, okay? And you look at, see, it's like, I can't wait. I cannot freaking wait. So Elvin, John Oakes' ears. Look at his ears. I have a picture. All right. What if one version of the race of man is gone, called the giants? Only the elves are left, or hobbits and ogres and all that, whatever. I don't know who you'd want to say is an ogre, because that doesn't have it. But then you have Shrek, okay? And you've seen, but ogres could be nice. They don't have to be mean. But you see Shrek, and then Shrek was based upon somebody from way back when, and you can probably see it on Facebook. You've probably seen it. But he was based on a human, okay? And he was like an ogre. Right? So what if one version of the race of man is gone? Only the elves or ogres or hobbits. The giants were the race of men, and the elves destroyed the giants, and the elves took over the earth, which is us, or the little gnomes, or the hobbits. What if J.R. Tolkien was correct? What if Lord of the Rings was a documentary? Or did biotech fashion humans after J.R. Tolkien? Who came first, the chicken or the egg? So I want to make sure I am able to go back and forth. I'm not going to be totally like making a claim of absolution that yes, Lord of the Rings was based on a documentary. I will also give allowance that, yes, maybe biotech is trying to fashion people out of Lord of the Rings. But then people are born with pointy ears, and they go and get surgery to go take the pointy ears off because they were getting teased a lot. I've seen that. But then with how biotech does things, they can develop things any way they want to. But where do they get it from? See, where do all these ideas from everyone's imagination, where do they all get it from? It wasn't like, oh, they just, one day they just discovered or just invented an elf, invented an ogre, invented a hobbit. It came from somewhere. It came from somewhere. And no matter how you spin it, in every direction with physics and science and chemistry and math and English and all that, it can exist relative to the environment, and it has existed. Show me the proof, because it's been thought up. The proof is right in front of you. The proof is in the stories. The proof is in the fairy tales. The proof is in the fiction. Just because you don't see it the way it's portrayed in Lord of the Rings doesn't mean it hasn't happened, or is going to happen, or it will happen, or it hasn't happened in the past, and it's not we don't want to have the orcs coming around and destroying things. Believe me, Lord of the Rings is scary. That was a scary Mordor and Sauron and all that. That's some scary shit. Those are like where nightmares are made from. Do you really want to see something like that walk down the street? No. But you know that should exist because even mankind can be that evil to each other. Just look at your Facebook. People speak what they see in these evil characters, but they do it in a different way. The evil character isn't like this evil character that has like the really aggressive features and with big teeth and all that. It's how people use their words against somebody. How they mock people, how they bully people. When you see an orc that wants to go and destroy things and hunt things, that's no different than somebody on Facebook trying to destroy someone's character, trying to destroy someone's religion, trying to, and trying to destroy someone's way of life. Okay, you can question it, but you don't need to destroy it. And you can question it in an intellectual way without going personal. There's a way to question things without going personal. But if one person who has an idea that is so different that people can't help but go personal, because where does that idea come from? Well, I'm just a mirror of my fucking community. I'm just a mirror to all of you guys. Everything that I've come up with already exists or has existed. Okay, nothing that I'm thinking of is new, but it's just new to you because you've only been on this earth for maybe 50, 60, 40, 50 years. You think you know everything because you've been around and someone told you everything that you know. I'm just saying maybe question what you've been told, that's all. There's other storylines. It's not just the Bible. It's not just, Lord of the Rings. It's not just other stories that are out there. There's so many ways to spin stories relative to your perspective, but it doesn't mean it's not true. It just means that you spun it in a different way from a different perspective. That then someone would be like, oh yeah, I can see where that is related to then the stories that I've been raised with and grew up with. The fear of the boogeyman, the fear of Satan, the fear of an orc or whatever you want to call them, right? Okay, so who came first, the chicken or the egg? I can't wait till I turn all silver, my original hair color. I realized that we all had either white or silver hair, the color of our hair, the first 40-something years of our years. Okay, so the color of our hair, like black or red or brown or whatever, the color of our hair, the first 40-something years of our life or longer relative to the programming melanin finally does break down. And the original hair color is not the color you see. It doesn't mean that I'm aging out. It just means that those phenotypical characteristics are like a temporary cure. And that cure breaks down. Doesn't mean you had to break down, but then you have now to take care of your hair in a different way once all the melanin is gone. Okay, then you have to use conditioning things and other stuff. And so the researchers found that when hair starts to go gray, varies by race, the race of man, the elven, the hobbit, and all that shit. The average ages are mid-30s for whites, late 30s for Asians, and mid-40s for the black people. Interesting, right? Okay, so there's that. And the race of men, giants who are basically extinct. In universe-wise, elves are only the firstborn of the children of Ilúvatar, the younger races being men, and the adopted children, the dwarves. The elves were the fairest creatures in Arda, a far more beautiful race than man, and generally tall, seldom less than 6 feet tall for elf women, no less than 6.5 feet for elf men. Okay, so remember the elves, the elven race over there in the Lord of the Rings, the most beautiful part of the movies that I so love. Okay, and so I think I'm probably like a little mini elf or a hobbit. I don't know. So, I mean, and so this is why you want diversity in your life, people. The world becomes more interesting. That's when I said thanks, John Oakes, because he opened up that part of that door opened, and I thrust that fucking door wide open. And so I said, maybe it's time to crack open Lord Lawyers of the Rings, right? And so there's all the wildfires, and then I'm looking at the Turning, 2100, Madonna. Oh yeah. So Madonna is recovering, but she's really sick from an infection. And she's gotten a lot of plastic surgery, some other stuff. Infection is at an all-time high. When the body's trying to push out damage and excessive foreign material, you're going to have major infection. This is why you don't want to get operations or plastic surgery or Botox or anything, because the body will want to release those demons. This is why my body felt pain when I had a few scars, and even today. But I don't get major infection because I never had any major surgeries. But you'll see, and I also released those demons too the last 3 years. But you'll see when climate changes and you feed and eat and your body will try to push out the damage and fix the damage. Trying to become whole again. Okay, trying to become whole again. Infection is the body working correctly, but if you don't release, high fever and potential death and sepsis and blockages and die suddenly, which is why people have starved themselves to stop the growth, triggering the immune system. But sometimes that's not enough to hold the operations in place. And so that's why people are afraid of food, because they're afraid to grow. They're afraid they don't have a proper release process because they have a closed immune system. I'm trying to now teach you guys to open up your own immune system, but it does take understanding, work, and a lifestyle and belief system change. And so, yeah, we're in a highly, highly hot environment that will produce that much growth just like that. And when that kind of growth happens just like that in bodies that are not prepared for that, that's the rupturing, that's the aneurysms, that's the died suddenly, that's even disease. But disease you can at least redirect. But if you keep disabling your body's ability to release and you keep adding more trauma to the body, then one day that disease will turn into a sudden death. And so scar tissue pain, it is a thing during climate change. And I can feel it where my dog scratched me really deeply, but I don't treat it. I just deal with it. And my husband said he feels it. Somebody else said on my Facebook that's in my world said that he feels scar pain. And so why is this dated in 2022? Climate change is aggressive. This is the new world. And so imagine those that had open heart surgery, those that had laparoscopic surgery, had so many operations for weight loss, for, oh my God, they're a mess. They had, hyperdontia, so they had all their teeth pulled out, or a lot of their teeth pulled out. Oh, it's going to be torturous for those that undergone so many different surgeries. And there's going to be treatments for that. And people are going to be taken down even more so, treating even their scars. Oh, it's bad. It's bad. It's really bad. So this is how a huge study reveals the impact of spanking on children. Now, I'm not going to read the article, but I'm going to just give you guys something to think about. A system that must use violence as a deterrent is neither a deterrent or a civilized society. Because when push comes to shove, people will always shove when they're taught violence. If we are producing major behavioral problems causing people to shove, maybe we should look at the root, R-O-U-T-E, or R-O-O-T, cause. Let's stop shoving. Let Darwin decide. And so when people beat submission into their kids, yeah, they might listen to you. They might be in fear, and that's all the fear and violence and stuff to program people. But then you will turn them into something even more dangerous later on. When they don't get their way and they only know how to use violence as to get their way, then animals get beaten, children get beaten, friends and families get beaten or hit or triggered. People start destroying things when they don't get their way. And in this environment, you're seeing it. You're seeing the kids are raised on violence, become violent, and then use things like machinery to hurt somebody. Or they get mad at the police force and they do stupid shit. So that's what happens when you beat your child or you spank them. You might get a temporary behavioral change, but then that will metastasize and that will make a monster out of that child. And you don't know what you're producing after that. Luckily, I released those demons. So even though I was spanked as a kid and had that much fear induced in me and people were threatening me, I released those demons. I don't want any retribution against anyone. No. I know where violence comes from. Violence against the life, violence against the body, violence against anything that doesn't look right based upon homogenized backgrounds. I know where it comes from. And I just walk away from anyone that is trying to convert me or use violent language or violence. And I just let it go. And I release my demons. I become whole again. And I make my world even that much smaller. But I still appreciate the diversity. And so AI is funny. Watch that video with Trump and Biden when they could actually say what they really wanted to say to the population. It's funny as hell. And then there's this face of the Hobbit human that lived 50,000 years ago has been reconstructed. Oh, yeah. And so elf. Okay, I'm just going to read something here. The elf, plural elves, is of ancient race of humanoids. Shit. Okay. Oh, yeah. They are a very common creature in fantasy universe. They are portrayed as elegant, intelligent, beautiful, deadly, with magic and bows. Okay. Elves are considered the most ancient race to realms. They have been involved in a lot of evolution, and there are many sub-races. There are so many half-breeds of elves, too. They have fought in wars against the trolls. Oh, remember the trolls, you guys? When you're fighting wars against the trolls and humans. They live in many habitats. That's why they call them trolls on Facebook. They live in many habitats in all different worlds. The main representation of elves in fantasy and video games are created by British author J.R. Tolkien. Here are the sub-races. Half-elf, dark elf, night elf, moon elf, fire elf, sea elf, frost elf, blood elf, high elf, undead elf, fell elf, wretched, half-night elf, half-blood elf, wood elf, wild elf, desert elf, shadow elf, flame elf. Okay, and then the trivia. In their point of origin, Lord of the Rings, Tolkien never mentions that they have pointed ears. However, elves are almost universally described as very tall, with very keen senses. Hearing and eyesight being common, and having an acute sense of smell is not unheard of. However, heights in the sub-races can differ. The elves of Gielinor and Dunmer and Bosmer of Tamriel are shorter than the average human. Okay, so there's that. So just take that for what you will. And then there's the age now. This is where I'm looking at in my own background on just around this perspective. Oh God, here we go. The orange bunyan is a character from Indonesian mythology that has also managed to firmly establish itself in the mythology of the Malaysian people as well. In Indonesia, Minangkabau region of the Sumatra Islands, the term orange bunyan is often associated with the term God. The meaning of God in the context is different from the Buddhism, Hinduism, or any other modern religion. In other words, in the case of the term Dewa, refers to a nation of spirits that live in the forest near a cemetery or on the edge of a hill. Okay, that's where even in Eurovision, that movie, that little girl was, or the woman was giving wine to the little spirits on the side of a hill, the edge of a hill. On the edge of the hill, before sunset, one can smell an aroma that is commonly referred to as God's cooking or God's sambal. This is similar to the smell of French fries and is usually associated with the presence of orange bunyan. In addition, they believe that there has been instances where people have been secretly hidden by their bunyan or gods. This is a myth that is quite popular among the members of the Minangkabau community, where it's also believed that the spirits have taken away their babies. Physical traits. The orange bunyan is considered to be supernatural. Beings are not seen by most humans or invisible to normal human eyes. They are described as being incredibly beautiful and almost identical to humans in appearance. Due to the nature of their appearance, the orange bunyan is often depicted in modern depictions wearing high fantasy-inspired clothing or with pointed ears with strong resemblance to elves from the European mythology. Okay, some stories also claim that the creature has a lack of philtrum, which is vertical groove between the base of the nose and the border of the upper lip. Okay, I can go into all that, but you guys can read that. So, yeah. I'm just sparking interest so you guys can be inspired to explore more than what is told to you. Okay? Inspiring something in people so they're not destroying each other and their children with pills, powders, supplements, and detoxes. Okay? And then, of course, I also promote this guy that's over there so you can follow him, A.H. Gulani. He is an influencer in Africa, and he will be leading the African nation as far as getting them up to the first world. He is very well read and he's been trained. And he also is casting death spells because he's giving people a lifespan, but eventually that will even be questioned if they even look at my information. But again, everything is a process. You can't give people all this all at once because they won't be able to handle it. Everything is a process, okay? Then here we go. The 10 plagues of Exodus regarding sacrificing the firstborn as a punishment is not so much of a punishment, but more of a warning. When the environment is so dynamic, you can't afford to save everything around you, even your firstborn. Everyone must be able to save themselves, but if something is not aware enough to save itself, nobody can really save it. You have to save yourself, Mom and Dad. That's why the Exodus story in the 5 books of Moses means. When the angel of death passed over the houses of Egypt, even though the story was about God committing retribution against the overseers and the people of Egypt, what they really were talking about was the only way to scale down the population is to make the environment so unstable only the strong survive. That is why not everybody is dying suddenly. Only the immunocompromised. If you get a disease, you have a chance to redirect, assuming you deal with those symptoms, promoting life and releasing the demons. Not attack life using remedies or surgeries or surgically take it out. Firstborn doesn't really mean you're firstborn. It can. It means anyone you think comes before you. When both people are trying to save somebody, each other, or someone else, they both die. You literally cannot save other people or other domestic animals. Believe me, I tried with my own animal. It's not always possible to save your own animal if they have horrible genetic history with the veterinary system, or they've been bred to such a level that they will suffer trying to become whole again, especially in a dynamic environment. When 2 people try to save themselves, it literally is a race, or you race against themselves. Only the strong will survive. But individuals who save themselves have a better chance saving themselves than saving somebody else. But you were never taught this because the system was going to call in the loan and scale down the population when it was necessary. That's what you're seeing right now. The environment, the culture, and the individual must be all on the same page for all people to save themselves and domestic animals to save themselves because they were with people who know how to keep life going, not destroy it with oncology and pills, herbs, and powders and supplements. Because before domestic animals can save themselves, the people must all save themselves from death. Only very few people know how to save themselves. I mean, very few. If your children are old enough to save themselves, nobody has to sacrifice anything. But if your children are not old enough to save themselves and mom can't save herself, everyone is going over the cliff, literally. So then mom has to save herself and her firstborn is sacrificed, assuming the mom knows how to save herself. And it's not through the holistic fucking world, moms out there who are taking food away from your children, plying them with elderberry syrup, aggressive detoxes and pills and powders and supplements and surgeries and herbs and spicy stuff and apple cider vinegar and kombucha. You are not saving your child. You're actually weakening their immune system. So when another energy shift comes and you keep plying them with aggressive antibiotics and herbs, they won't survive an aggressive environment. And that's called die suddenly. And then you've been given absolution. You can blame the V's or blame someone who had a V. And so then you have someone to blame. Your kids passed away. You're not really going to survive and everyone goes over the cliff. That's what's going on. All of you people at the Crunchy Mama, Mommy and Me groups. So even that is questionable that mom knows how to save herself because she thinks the holistic world is doing that. No, the fucking holistic world is not saving your kid or you. The naturopathics are not, neither are the allopathics, neither are the surgical system, neither are the herbologists or the MLMers selling you all their fucking concoctions. They're not fucking saving you. They're just making a shit ton of money off you. And you're buying it because you don't know any better, mom. And that's what the system is banking on, that you won't know any better, you won't evolve, and you will take your whole genetic line over the fucking cliff. And that is what's happening. So we are in these times right now. We are in Exodus, and you're watching Exodus happen right now. And so yeah, your kid may survive the next few environments, maybe. But when someone dies suddenly at 22 years old, it's because they may have survived the last 3 years, but they couldn't survive another frequency change because their mom recommended them to deal with COVID with all the ivermectins, the diets, the detoxes, everything. And so parents actually weakening their kids' ability to evolve, and they withhold food and starve their fucking children. It's sad to watch. It's fucking sad to watch. But I can't say anything to them. They have to be the one to figure it out for themselves. Okay. All right. There's something to this as far as J.R. Tolkien. Now I'm going to read this whole article because I want to learn this. This is where I'm going to be taking some information and learning it myself and seeing, because I got to know this J.R. Tolkien. I got to know who this guy is. There's something to this. The Garden of Eden, another story around the amount of diversity before we became homogenized and programmed. According to Tolkien, there were indeed evil elves, or at the very least, ones who did evil actions. One example of this is Fëanor and his sons. All of them swore an oath that meant that they would not let anyone take the Silmarils from them. So you can read that story. Are hobbits related to elves? No, they were not related to the elves, but a race unto themselves. Hobbits, also known as Halflings, were an ancient mortal race that lived in the Middle Earth. Although their exact origins are unknown, they were initially found in the northern regions of Middle Earth and below the Vales of Anduin. Oh, I can't wait to go and watch Lord of the Rings now. I can't fucking wait. All right, I'm going to read this. All right, so be excited because it's all exciting, guys. J.R.R. Tolkien, a biographical sketch by David Duans, MBE. Who was Tolkien? John Ronald Reuel Tolkien, 1892 to 1973, was a major scholar of the English language, specializing in Old and Middle English. Twice professor of Anglo-Saxon Old English at the University of Oxford, he also wrote a number of stories, including most famously The Hobbit, 1937, and The Lord of the Rings, 1954 to 1955, which are set in prehistoric era in the invented version of our world, which he called the Middle English name of the Middle Earth. Now, we were told to read The Hobbit. I never read it, but I will probably, I don't know if I'll read it, but I'll watch the movie. We'll see. This was people by men and women, elves, dwarves, and trolls, orcs or goblins, and of course, hobbits. He has regularly been condemned by the English lit establishments with honorable exceptions, but loved by literally millions of readers worldwide. Why would he be condemned by the English lit? See, that's where some discrimination in academia can be so annoying. So fucking annoying. In the 1960s, he was taken up by many members of the nascent counterculture, largely because of his concern with the environmental issues. In 1997, he came top of 3 British polls, organized respectively by Channel 4, Waterstones, the Folio Society, and SFX, the UK's leading science fiction media magazine, amongst discerning readers asked to vote for the greatest book of the 20th century. Please note also that his name is spelled Tolkien. There is no Tolkien. It's Tolkien. I-E-N. Childhood and youth. The name Tolkien, pronounced Tolkien, okay, equals stress on both syllables, was believed by the family, including Tolkien, to be of German origin. German origin, okay. Tolkien, foolish, brave, or stupidly clever, hence the pseudonym Oxymore, which he occasionally used. However, this quite probably was a Germanic rationalization of an originally Baltic Tolkien or Tolkien. In any case, his great-grandfather, John Johann Benjamin Tolkien, came to Britain with his brother Daniel from Gdansk in about 1772 and rapidly became thoroughly anglicized. Certainly his father, Arthur Rule Tolkien, considered himself nothing if not English. Arthur was a bank clerk and went to South Africa in the 1890s for a better prospects of promotion. There he was joined by his bride, Mabel Suffield, whose family was not only English through and through, but West Midlands since time immemorial. Okay, so John Ronald to family and early friends, was born in Bloemfontein, South Africa on January 3rd, 1892. His memories of Africa were slight but vivid, including a scary encounter with a large hairy spider, and influenced his later writings to some extent slight because on 15 February 1896, his father died, and he, his mother, and his younger brother, Hilary, returned to England, and more particularly the West Midlands. The West Midlands in Tolkien's childhood was a complex mixture of the grimly industrial Birmingham conurbation and the quintessentially rural stereotype of England, Worcestershire, and surrounding areas. Severn country, the land of composer Elgar Vaughan, William and Gurney, and most distantly the poet A.E. Housman, it is just across the border from Wales. Tolkien's life was split between these two, and then very rural hamlet of Sarahole, with its mill just south of Birmingham, and darkly urban Birmingham himself, where he was eventually sent to King Edward's School. By then, the family moved to King's Heath, where the household backed onto a railway line. Young Ronald, developing linguistic imagination, was engaged by the sight of coal trucks going to and from South Wales, bearing destination like Nangtagalo, Perhywisiber, and I can't pronounce these. I'm sorry. There he moved to the somewhat more pleasant Birmingham suburb of Edgbaston. However, in the meantime, something of a profound significance had occurred when estranged Mabel and her children. Okay, so I won't read all this a lot, but I'm going to read it myself. But I want you to understand that there's a lot to this. England made America. Like England made America. The UK, the United Kingdom made America. And America then took all the people that were enslaved and suffering in their original homeland, said, okay, here, we're going to give you a chance. And yeah, there's a lot of human experimentation. Absolutely, a lot of capitalism, a lot of pitting one person against the other, or races or cultures or politics or religions against each other, because that's how evolution, and that's how we can see who the strongest will survive. And so every war is about pulling out children or the strongest that have a desire to live and work and be whatever, but then you also run the risk of being homogenized and used as a tool and then allowed to pass away through really aggressive or subtle means. And so now I am challenging that whole thing, that as we are in this great reset, that we're going to see everything that's been told to us. I wouldn't say is a lie, but when you laugh at people for new ideas, that's the jail. When you are in conflict with someone questioning your methods, then you better learn how to articulate your intention. And you will find that when I am going up against huge systems like the medical, holistic, energy healing world, their intentions is to help you pass away. Their intention is to keep you cured, which was okay in a slower frequency environment. But now we're in a higher frequency environment. Kids can't afford to be cured. Adults can't afford to be cured. I mean, I guess they can for a very short amount of time until then an energy frequency then causes it to die suddenly. And so now you have to relook at your intentions. It was okay in a slower frequency environment, and death was okay if it was like 80 or 90, or you thought that you lived to be 80 or 90 or 100. But now with the atmosphere increasing its particle acceleration, you'll be lucky if you survive your young adulthood. You'll be lucky if you survive your current adulthood. You'll be lucky your kids will survive their childhood. And right now, kids are growing up deficient, like majorly deficient. And of course, at the hands of their parents, withholding food. And of course, not changing their lifestyle belief systems. And of course, forcing all those remedies down their child's throats. It's horrific to watch now that we see, and now we can make connections. Even go as far as saying that correlation could equal causation. And so when you think about the therapies of these, they're not poison, they're just growth. But what's poison that is FDA approved because it's not poison like you think, immediate on contact, is all the remedies market. It's the herbs. It's the extracts. It's the tinctures. It's the detoxes. It's the elderberry syrup. It's all the honey and apple cider vinegar and turmeric and aggressive spices. That's what's going to cause your kid to be so immunocompromised that experiencing an energy conversion or energy shift or an exposure to microbes will cause them to have died suddenly. They won't survive their childhood. And with these kids, or how skinny they are, and how malnourished they are, and how immunocompromised they are, and the mother is actively, obviously, keeping food away because the kid is allergic because they can't get over those food allergies, and they're breaking bones, and they're playing outdoors as if all the time, and they really haven't faced predisposed issues because nobody wants anyone to suffer. That's the mother's love that will destroy her child. That is all spiritual. That is what's going on. That's the Great Reset. And everything is aligned with the way the system works, the laws, the rules in the health and wellness world. As far as cures, remember, you've been brainwashed in one way. If you can't get out of your own brainwashing, we thank you for your service. I hope your kid has a good life, however long or short it is. And I hope you, parents, have a good life, however long or short it is. You have a chance to redirect. Most people won't, because it's too hard. People are not built to suffer. They weren't. So the system will give you a way out through the love and the remedies. Bye.